Welcome to Kim John TV.
Where we're putting all the facts onto your screen and trumping all other networks. Today we'll be discussing the political and economic tensions that have been rising across the world in the past decade.
Over to our interview with Nigel in the Arctic.
Hello Nigel, thank you for joining us today. So, who are the key players in the Arctic oil gas race?
Thank you, Harvey. The key players are Denmark, who are creating an Arctic Military Commander Response Force, Russia, who carry out Arctic bomber patrols, Norway, who have started to expand its navy, Canada, who already carry out military exercises in the Arctic since 2002, and USA, who plan to create 6 new icebreakers by 2023.
Oh, okay, so what is causing these tensions?
Tensions are being caused by global warming, as the climate changes thawing more of the Arctic Ocean each summer. This means that more melting ice allows ships to travel over the top of the world. This means that drilling for oil and gas is becoming increasingly possible further into the Arctic. It is estimated that the Arctic contains 1/8 of the world's untapped oil and 1/4 of the gas. This means that it's very desirable for the key players.
Thank you for that. Now, let's look at some solutions for this Arctic oil issue.
The solution is to allocate borders to countries which have been verified by scientists, because some countries are claiming areas much larger than what they truly own, and by looking at the continental shelf, scientists can determine which claim is valid and which claim isn't, because at the moment all claims are overlapping, especially Greenland and Russia's.
Today I'm joined by Harvey to discuss about the South China Sea dispute. Hello Harvey.
Hello.
So what main issues are arising within this?
At the most basic level, it's a contest between China and several other Southeast Asian nations, for example, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, and Taiwan. And claiming this sea allows the country to have some of the most strategically important oceanic territory on Earth. So China, for the past few years, has been asserting greater control over faraway waters that are not even theirs. And this has been leading to a bit more aggressively patrolling the area, and the dispute is about whether China will comply with international laws and chasing off these non-Chinese ships, which is not fair according to the UN treaty.
Does it involve any superpowers?
Yes, recently the superpower USA has got involved by sending Navy to patrol waters it insists that are more international. They want to maintain the free movement and that rule by international law. They believe that the risk of outright conflict is quite low, but the militarization of these heavily trafficked and fished waters is still dangerous.
So what is the 9-dash line?
So this line has been showing up on Chinese maps since 1940s, which initially began as an 11 dashes. It shows a vast stretch, but a huge, it's quite vague, where the Chinese government have not specified the exact coordinates. And of course, they claim a lot more than they own, potentially. And the risky factor is that it seems to go many miles beyond what is allowed under the UN Treaty on Naval Territorial Issues, as China had previously signed. So these are the areas where China has been building islands, installing runways, and running patrols. For China, the line represents a more of a long historical claims that the country has, after 2 centuries of almost failing and being weak. Whereas the other nations, it's a symbol of that they just what they characterize as the naked power grab of China.
So why is the South China Sea so important?
$5 trillion of global trade flows through annually just through those seas, which are deep with oil, gas, hydrocarbon, and fish stocks. So the United States Energy Information Agency estimated that there are around 11 billion barrels of oil just under the sea, which is a huge source of economic potential for every country that would obviously own the sea. And they say that there are around $5 trillion worth of goods move through the sea every year, and this adds up to around 30% of global trade.
What is Japan's role within this issue?
So Japan says that it's surveyed around the 10 of the islands for the last 10 years in the 19th century, and it has formally incorporated the islands as its own territory. But obviously after World War II they had to make a reclaim, and with the Treaty of San Francisco. However, these treaties have not been quite consistent, and now Japan says that China has raised no objections to the deal, and now since the 1970s, the issue of oil resources in the area has emerged, and now China is pressing claims onto what's theirs.
Will this lead to China's rise?
So Chinese leaders often distrust the United States' intentions and consider their country to be the far weaker party. Extending Chinese control is a way to stave off perceived threats. This insecurity also contributes to Chinese skepticism of international institutions such as the South China Sea Tribunal, which Chinese media portray as a plot to weaken China.
Thank you, Harvey. Now over to Ravi with the solutions.
China prefers bilateral negotiations with other parties, but many of its neighbours argue that China's relative size and clout gives it an unfair advantage. Some countries have argued that China should start negotiating with ASEAN. However, China is opposed to this, while ASEAN is also divided on how to solve the dispute.
Welcome back to the studio with me, Harvey. Now, we have Desmond here joining us to talk about the Russia's western border issue. Hi, Desmond.
Good morning.
So, what are the key areas of concern in this issue?
Well, today Ukraine is one of Russia's biggest markets for natural gas exports, a crucial transit route to the rest of Europe. Now, Russia does not want to let go of Ukraine. However, within the western part of Ukraine, it's pro-European and wants to move away from Russia as far as they can and join the European Union. However, Russia has been implementing several restrictions, refusing to let them join the European Union. Now, the eastern side of the Ukraine is very pro-Russia, where 25% of the Ukrainians have Russian as their first language. Now, this has caused several problems within the west and the east of the Ukraine, as the Russians have been helping the eastern side of the Ukraine, trying to reinforce their power. However, the West has been pushing back, causing a lot of crises and a lot of deaths. Now, Putin in 2014 said that the Ukraine was on the brink of a civil war, as they were fighting and a lot of deaths were occurring. Now, the Ukrainian territory of Crimea was annexed by the Russian Federation in early 2014. Since then, the peninsula has been administrated as two Russian federal subjects, the Republic of Crimea and the federal city of Sevastopol.
So, how do you think these tensions might materialise in the future, especially with the introduction of Trump?
Well, within his candidacy, Trump campaigned to support the annexation of Russia. Now, the pro-European side of the Ukraine are very concerned as what might happen, because if Trump does support the annexation of Russia, then there's really nothing that we can do.
So, what do you think the implications are of this on the surrounding areas?
Well, when the crisis first started in April 2014, nearly 9,500 people were reported to be killed due to this conflict between the east and the west of the Ukraine, and 22,000 plus injured as a result of this. Now, if this dispute is to continue, then more Russian militants will be sent to the pro-Russian side in the Crimea and to the eastern side, and there will be deaths in both the west and to the east of the Ukraine. Thank you for joining us on Kim Jong TV.
This has been a conclusive overview of the world's tensions.
See you next time.
Ding!